Good afternoon. I'm Paul Nisbet from Call Scotland, and today we're going to have a look at the SQA Adapted Digital Question Papers. Call Scotland is a small unit within the Edinburgh University, and we're primarily funded by the Scottish Government to provide a national service and centre for the use and application of assistive technology for pupils with additional support needs. We perform a number of different applications. We have a strategic leadership role throughout the country. We carry out a number of individual assessments with students and support students. We have a CPD and training set of events, an information and advice service, including a few websites. We have a loan bank of assistive technology where we lend out all across Scotland communication aids and switches and computers and software in some cases, and we do a number of different knowledge transfer and research and development projects. So today we're going to talk about exams, everyone's favourite subject. But to make it a bit more palatable, we'll have a look at some jokes. This has nothing to do with the digital exams. These are just funny answers to questions that talented young people have offered over the years. So here we go. The trouble with this is that if you're doing it without an audience, you've got no idea when the laughter has stopped. But never mind, we'll crack on. Explain the shape of the graph. I think this person's actually managed to describe the shape of the graph, maybe not explain it. One for your mathematicians and lateral thinkers. The water of the Earth's oceans stored lots of heat. Engineer designed an ocean liner. He thought he had a good idea, but his boss fired him. Explain. Because he slept with his boss's wife. Oh no. Naughty, naughty. And another one for the mathematicians. Why phosphorus trichloride is polar? God made it that way. Discuss. Use an example to show that Tracy is wrong. She's a woman. Ooh, bad, 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 bad. Does the object continue to move after it comes to rest? No. There's an elephant in the way. Fantastic. Okay, so today we'll look at digital question papers. What are they? Impact and uptake to date, and just a wee tiny bit at the end about how you produce them. SQA have got a number of principles that guide the use of assessment arrangements. Basically, these things are designed so that all young people can have an equal opportunity to achieve national standards, and the integrity of the qualification must be maintained, so it shouldn't give anyone an unfair advantage. They should be always tailored to meet a candidate's individual needs, and as far as possible, the candidate's normal way of learning and producing work. So last year, or rather this year, 2011, there were 15,412 candidates for whom requests were made, and that's almost 10% of all candidates in Scotland sitting SQA assessments and examinations, and a total of 53,703 entries, 7.3% of all entries. And this is what schools asked for. So the most common, when you ask for an assessment arrangement, permission to use an assessment arrangement, you almost always ask for more than one type of support. So the most common is extra time and separate accommodation, and then after that, the most common type of support that schools ask for is the use of a reader. 18,000 requests for a reader. Then a scribe, and then the use of ICT, including digital papers. And then all the other kind of things that schools can ask for. So you could have your paper printed with an enlarged font, or a different font, enlarged or adapted print. The paper signed to the candidate signing the responses, the paper printed in Braille, a whole range of different things. Now in Scotland we have the Curriculum for Excellence, and the main aspiration with Curriculum for Excellence is to enable all children to develop their capacities as successful learners, confident individuals, responsible citizens and effective contributors to society. So we might ask ourselves, how can you be a successful learner if you can't read exams, books and learning materials? How can you be a confident individual if you depend on others to read to you and write for you? How can you be a responsible citizen if you've got difficulty accessing information? And how can you be an effective contributor if you have difficulty speaking, writing or communicating? And this is relevant with examinations. These questions are not rhetorical questions, these are real issues that we have with 18,000 instances where a young person is being read to in an examination. There's also a cost issue. I should have updated this for this year, but this is last year's figures. 16,000 requests. Now that's per entry, and each entry ends up with a young person sitting 2 and sometimes 3 individual papers. So that's, say, 30,000 individual exams. And if they last an hour and a half each, that's 45,000 hours. And if we pay, on average, our reader scribes £20, it'll be more if you're a qualified teacher, it'll be a lot less if you're a classroom assistant. So average 20 quid. That's 900,000 a year, plus the cost of the invigilators who get £20.50 for a 3-hour session, I think that's right. So it's about £10 an hour, £450,000. So we're currently spending well over £1 million in Scotland every year reading and scribing in examinations. And I don't know what the figures are for England. I believe that it's about 56,000 requests for a reader scribe this year. So you can work it out for yourselves. It's a lot of money though. So we're going to have a look at some digital question papers. And these are PDF documents, and the easiest thing is for us just to go and have a look. So we'll go straight over to here, and let's see if I can get this to work and fit it in the screen size that we're recording. So it's a Computing Studies Intermediate 1 paper, and we've opened it up with Acrobat Reader. It's exactly the same as the paper, with the exception of these red answer boxes. So on the screen we can click in the answer box and we can type our answer in. Now because it's a PDF, then you can obviously change the size of the thing, make it bigger or smaller. You can change the colours for candidates that might have a particular colour preference. And you can have the thing read out by the computer. Now we're going to use PDF Allowed here, which is a product from TextHelp, but you could use a whole range of different programs.
1. Matthew is using his home computer system to do a geography project on France.
So there we've got the thing read out, and it's using a standard Microsoft Anna voice. And if I was doing this on my laptop, I would give you a much better demonstration of one of the Scottish voices that we've now got. I'll maybe redo this bit of the presentation if I get a chance, with the much better Scottish voice. So you can type your answers in, you can have the thing read out, you can read your answers back if you want.
He could use a mouse to draw the map.
Doesn't sound so good really, does it, with Microsoft Anna. When you come to the ticky box questions, you can tick or tick again to get rid of them. And that's basically it. PDFs, open, read, change colour, type answer in. What you sometimes find is that there are occasionally questions where you need to do some drawing, and it is possible to do that using the the Adobe Reader comment and markup toolbar. So I'll drag this up out of the way, and here we go. Match the file types below to the description by drawing a line between them. So we'll click on the line tool and then we'll draw some lines. Click and uncompressed graphic file, EVI video Okay, and you can do other things as well. So if you felt the need to write a small note to your examiner, so it's kind of the same as anyone defacing their paper by writing in the corner. And if you were that young person that we saw that drew the elephant in the first few slides, and you had more graphic talent than I do, then you could do the same thing on the digital paper. And so that's basically it. You, at the end of the exam, the young person would print this thing out. One thing I should say about drawing is that you can use the computer, but equally, when a candidate sits the paper, then they are always given a paper copy of the paper, and so if they wish, then they could just do their diagrams and their illustrations on the paper copy, and then at the end of the exam collate the paper copy with the printout of the digital copy, and then send it off to SQA for marking. Now, one thing I should say is that not all the digital papers have got these red answer boxes. You only get them if the original question paper was a question and answer format. And so a paper such as English writing, the candidate would normally be writing their extended answer in an answer booklet, and so on the computer you would just be using Microsoft Word, or you can use a PDF version of the answer booklet. So question and answer papers have got the red answer boxes. Higher papers, the more advanced levels, typically don't have answer boxes, and in those cases you might be using the digital version to read the questions, but you're typically using a word processor to type your answers up. So let's close this down and get back to the presentation. So the software that you need for the digital papers, in the schools you need Adobe Reader, 8, 9 or the latest version X, which is free. If you want the paper read out to you, there are a number of options. There is a free built-in Adobe Reader read out loud tool, but it's not as good as the PDF allowed in our view. And this is available to Scottish schools under a special site license deal that we've arranged with Learning and Teaching Scotland. Unfortunately, I believe that TextHelp are going to stop selling PDF allowed completely as of the end of December this year, so that won't be available in 2012. But you can also use things like Read and Write Gold and Claro Read, and the one that I personally like, if you've got no money, is called Natural Reader, which is very straightforward, easy to use. It doesn't highlight the text when it reads, but it's pretty good. Now, I mentioned earlier about the Scottish Voices, and although I don't have them on my home machine, which is a bit remiss of me, all schools in Scotland can download 2 high-quality Scottish Voices. One's called Heather, for a female voice, and last week we launched Stuart, which is a new male voice, and we might come back to that later if I've got time. When you're using Microsoft Word to write your extended answers, one of the programs that we might suggest you take a look at is WordTalk, which is a free text reader for Microsoft Word, and it's a very popular program, very easy to use, and it does highlight the text as it reads, and you can use it with Heather and Stuart and a range of other voices. So, with the digital papers, we've got a number of ways in which these things can support candidates with reading difficulties. You can zoom and magnify the text, you can change colours, you can use text-to-speech, you can have keyboard-only operation, and in fact a new development we've been trialling with colleagues in the Scottish Sensory Centre is embedded BSL videos for candidates with a hearing impairment. Number of ways to support writing. You can obviously use the keyboard. There is a spell checker built into Adobe Reader. If you have permission from SQA, you can use other tools such as word prediction and speech recognition, and candidates with physical disabilities could use on-screen keyboards accessed with mouse or switches or even eye gaze. A couple of examples on the left hand side here. We have Pen Friend with an on-screen keyboard and a word predictor, and then we have an old Clicker 4. Nowadays you'd probably be using the Grid or something similar, or SAW, switch access to Windows, and so you could use a switch to scan and select letters or words and type them into your digital paper. There are basic drawing tools, as we've seen in Adobe Reader, but when it comes to complex scientific maths, quadratic equations, that kind of thing, chemical structural formula, you can't type those into the digital papers on screen because the red boxes are text boxes, and so typically you'd be using an equation editor such as the one built into Word, or the one we like is called EFOFX, EFOFEX, which is I think it's a very easy to use equation editor and drawing tool. As we said, only the question and answer papers have got red answer boxes, and so for the higher levels you typically use a word processor or just type your answers into the PDF answer booklets. One of the nice things about this project that SQA have done is they've made all the digital papers back to 2007 available for free download from the SQA website, and that means that young people can sit at home or indeed at school and practice. I said earlier that you weren't going to see the view from our study window, but you can, because that's my daughter Mary a couple of years ago pretending to use a digital paper. So that's what they are. They're digital versions of paper assessments, and there's no modification made to the actual design of the paper or the questions, and that does mean that some questions might not translate particularly well to the screen medium, and the ones which are not so good are math, science and drawing questions. The text-to-speech is pretty good, especially with the new Scottish voices, but it's never 100% accurate. There will always be some words where the words aren't spoken correctly or completely accurately, and sometimes the intonation is frankly a bit weird. And if you're blind and you're using a screen reader like JAWS or Thunder or HAL or Supernova, then you would find that the text and the questions wouldn't necessarily be read out in the correct order. In this kind of situation, we would normally suggest that you contact SQA and ask them for a plain text version of the paper that's been optimized for screen reader use. So let's have a look at the uptake. We piloted these things in 2006 and 2007, and then SQA couldn't really think of any good reason not to offer them more generally in 2008. And since then we've seen a steady increase in the number of centres, the number of candidates and the number of requests for the digital papers. So 146 centres, that's I think over a third of all secondary schools in Scotland are now using digital papers. So it's been quite a significant ramping up of demand for these, which I guess suggests that they are indeed proving to be useful in the schools. Who uses digital papers? About 2/3 of the candidates are dyslexic or have got another specific learning difficulty, but there are a range of reasons why you might be interested in using digital papers. Physical or motor impairment, learning difficulties, visual impairment, others. Here are some comments. I'll direct you to where you can find all these reports at the end of this presentation. But when we've done quite a lot of evaluation in the first 2 years, and these are some of the reasons why young people choose to use digital papers. Many of them just simply prefer it to using a reader or scribe. We often get comments from the young people that say they feel more confident using the papers compared with, again, using reader scribes. And every year we send a questionnaire to staff, so we're now building up a good picture of what staff think of them. And the main comments, again, that come from staff are to do with independence and confidence, cutting down on the number of scribes and readers. Here's somebody intending to completely replace reader scribes for some subjects in their exams. Increased independence and sense of achievement. So, reliant on readers, stuck with scribes, or independent with ICT. So here's I think it was Campbelltown Grammar School, which is in the West Coast. And instead of having umpteen separate rooms and separate readers and separate invigilators, they've got a number of young people in the one room using ICT. Summary of where we are with local authorities. There are 32 local authorities in Scotland, and Fife is leading the field with 300 requests in 2010. I don't know what the figures are for 2011 because I've not got them from SQA yet. Percentage of centres in different local authorities using digital papers. Again, this was last year in 2010. So there's clearly some way to go before we've got 100%. But given that I think every school in the country has candidates that require assessment arrangements, so you'll be expecting these percentages to be increasing quite a bit over the next few years. This is a breakdown of the number of requests from different centres. So you can see that quite a lot of the centres last year had a relatively small number of requests. The majority between 2 and 5 requests for digital papers. And so that's quite encouraging if you're thinking about doing this yourself, because it kind of suggests that you don't need to go for it in a big way. You could start off with a very small number of candidates and a small number of subjects. What you do find, though, is that most schools, having used them one year, will use them more the next year. So they maybe start off small and gradually increase. And in 2010, Queen Anne High School in Dunfermline was the biggest users, and they've obviously become quite enthusiastic about these things. Queen Anne High is a pretty big school, but that's quite a large number of requests. The top 15 subjects, English is the most common, and I guess that's because English is the most common subject examination that's sat, and also because it suits the digital paper format quite well. But it's quite a wide range of different subjects that people ask for, and even although the options for typing in mathematical and chemical formula aren't that great, we obviously still have a fair number of requests for these particular subjects. One of the things that interests me is whether we can replace readers with text-to-speech software and the digital papers. And so every year we ask schools who've used them. And it looks like kind of round about half the schools use text-to-speech. So I guess that means that half don't, obviously, and the schools that don't use the text-to-speech typically use the digital papers to support candidates with writing difficulties. I would be hoping that these figures would increase, though, over the next few years. There is some evidence, this is assessment arrangements requests as a percentage of the total number of requests last year. So there is some evidence that the use of reader scribes is reducing and the use of ICT and digital papers is increasing. So I think that's probably a good thing. So there's no doubt that these things have been quite successful in Scotland. Possible reasons for success? Well, they are reliable, incredibly enough, given that it's technology. They do actually seem to work. PDF, very simple. Everyone's got Adobe Reader, bog standard, nothing fancy. terms of technology. And even although some of us would say that PDFs aren't very accessible, which is true, if you're blind, they aren't, they do actually meet the support needs of a large number of students. And that's because most of the students that have got difficulties with exams aren't blind. It's a very small number who are blind and who use programs like JAWS and other screen readers. So most of them are dyslexic and or have got specific learning difficulties. And for these type of students, the PDF digital papers are very, very accessible, as we've seen. Another reason why it's successful is the SQA question paper team. These are the people that do the desktop publishing and produce the digital papers. Have got to be some of the most professional people I've ever met. Sheila Rennie, who started the thing off and used to head up the digital paper team until she retired. Really, she does the digital question paper team in SQA do a fantastic job, because every one of these red answer boxes that you see is hand drawn in by one of those members of the team, and they do a fantastic job with the consistency and quality of what they produce. There's a fair amount of support which I think has helped with the uptake. SQA website with guidance materials and past papers, and also the assessment arrangements team within SQA can help when schools have questions. We have a website, or a series of websites which are quite heavily used that I've got a lot of material on, and also we've been doing CPD. It's one of the things that we do anyway, and so we've been running courses on how to use digital papers and how to produce digital prelims and mock papers, and that's definitely one of the reasons why this thing's taken off. We also get asked a lot to go to schools and local authorities to deliver on-site training, and I think that helps to take forward any kind of new initiative. So to finish off, this is the SQA assessment arrangement site where you can download the past papers, and this is our adapted digital exams website where you can find out about the projects and download all the reports that we've written over the past few years and get advice on what kind of software to use. We said that we'd just say something about how you make assessments, and if you're interested in making prelim papers or mocks, as we call them in England and Wales, then you would need Acrobat Professional. And again, Scottish schools can get this under a cheap deal from Learning and Teaching Scotland. The usual commercial rate for Adobe Professional is something like 300 quid. I think you can get an education site license for a lot less than that through specialist software suppliers like Pew. And I think an education price is about £100. This would be your workflow if you're interested in making these adapted exams. You can either start with a PDF from one of the producers of we call them prelims, you call them mocks. You can scan papers into the computer, or you can start off with Word or Publisher or InDesign. You draw in your answer boxes with Acrobat Pro, and then this is an important thing here: extend features in Reader. And that means that when a candidate opens the thing in Adobe Reader, they can type their answers in and save them. If you don't extend the features, they can't save their answers, and they also can't use these drawing tools that we saw. So this is an important thing to remember. Just finish off by saying, why stop with exams? So if pupils need digital papers, then they probably also need other materials in accessible digital formats. And if we're spending over £1 million a year on reading and scribing in exams in Scotland, then how much are we spending on reading and scribing class all the other 25 weeks of the school year? So that brings us on to another one of our Call Scotland projects, which is called Books for All. And it's a pretty basic thing. All we want to do is get all the curriculum materials that are currently used in Scottish schools, which are currently paper, made available in some sort of accessible format, and that could be large print or braille or audio or digital PDF or digital Word or digital whatever. So the Books for All website is a place that you would go to find out about that. We have sections on finding books, making books, and using books. And one of the particularly exciting things about this is the Books for All database, which is a database of textbooks and other materials in accessible formats, which we've only currently got about 1,200 titles on it, but again we're expecting this to increase greatly over the next few years. So these are the Call Scotland websites if you're interested in this. Call Scotland website itself, this is where you can download the Scottish Voice, this is where you can get Word Talk, this is the Digital Exams website, and that's Books for All. So I hope that this has been useful, and if you would like to follow anything up, please get in touch through the website, or you can call us on 0131 651 6236, or send me an email to paul.nisbet, nisbet, at ed.ac.uk. Yeah, thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.